the things that we're going to walk through today are threads being automatically named, that the uploads are showing the processing status, that we have a connecting indicator to our prompt bar. We'll show a behind-the-scenes glimpse into how the assets are being processed and how that's been adjusted to improve the reliability and observability of that. And we'll also go over how the assets are being summarized and how we're generating keywords. At that point, I'm going to hand it over to Andy, and Andy will take over screen sharing as we look at some navbar changes to the homepage, the new sign up button on the homepage, some improvements for drag and drop, how we can use the escape key to cancel focus when you're on a prompt, and something that he did cool for dark mode. Okay, so let's move on down the road to Chrome. Where's Chrome? There's Chrome. And I'm going to open the inspection panel here, clear all this fun stuff out. And we're going to start off with describe baseball in 20 words. And so baseball is a bat and ball sport. Okay, that sounds like it listened to me and kind of understood what I was looking for there. And I'm going to pull up the last message that was exchanged here. And we can see a label here, which is baseball basics, is what it decided to call this chat. Now, we don't have anything in the UI at this moment that would, maybe up at the top left, it could say baseball basics as the thread name or something like that. But in the soon to be released tree control, the reason this is important is because it would say baseball basics on the thread that you're focused on the left-hand side. And so that is thread automatic renaming at work.
Aaron, I'm just trying to think about whether this is the same thing as a tag in Gen 1, and I think it's not, because a tag in Gen 1 is something that I put content like files into, and this is a label on the conversation. Is that a true statement about how they're different?
Yes, this would be the title or name of the conversation. And again, the way that it will, and the reason this is important is because when we have the tree control on the left-hand side and you can see your threads, you wouldn't want them all to just, right now, they're just new is what they're all titled as. And you would want to be able to navigate from your baseball thread to your football thread to your hockey
Right.
thread or whatever threads you got going on. Now, if we look at the message before, you'll see there is no label here because the conversation wasn't complete. And so the LLM may not have had enough information to properly suggest a title. And so the way that this works behind the scenes right now is on the last response of the first exchange, as soon as the response is complete, we'll go ahead and solicit a name from the LLM. And that is automatic thread naming at work, soon to be visible in the UI with our tree control. Okay, cool. Getting back to here, we're going to go to Storytell development. And I'm going to say hello. And then we're going to upload a file and my handy dandy Bitcoin white paper, which I've uploaded 1,000 times. And we can see that we are currently extracting that file. I'll zoom in a little bit. And once we are done extracting that file, we're summarizing the file. In the act of summarizing, we created a summary of the file. We also tried to extract or create our own title for the file. And we also created keywords for that file. And now we can go ahead and chat with the file. What is this file about? And so I will switch to another demonstration. This is kind of the behind the scenes of our generation 2. And because we're in the development environment, I'll go ahead and zoom in on that. We can pop over to things like our overview of the development environment where we can see the request rate here. Every time there's one of these little lines, that means we had a deployment. And so we can see, what were the things that we deployed. And we can go over to infrastructure and we can see the different hardware components that are running in the background. This is our UI server, for example, and you can see our database cluster. And these are the pub sub topics, which is a messaging queue that we dispatch messages over in order to have them be reliable. And so if I come up here, here's a diagram of these kind of messaging queues at work. And so our control plane component, which is the API server, this is the computer, if you will, that we're chatting with or uploading files to. It is sending a message over this message queue to this processable assets queue, and then it is subscribing to that message. At some point, when we're ready and scale starts to matter, you'll see one of these lines change, and there'll be a new component that gets introduced, which is pulling messages off of this processable assets queue to process the files. And the reason that's important, well, there are a couple of reasons, but one of them is just the memory constraints. You can see this control plane computer has 512 megabytes of memory right now, which is more than enough for serving an API. But if you imagine uploading one 500 megabyte file, that could completely consume all of the memory here. And so this is an which is actually one of the problems that we have in Smart Chat today, where the one computer is trying to do everything, and it has crashed before because it's just trying to process too many files, as one example. And so there was an architecture change to slowly start to expand out, where we're sending a message over this queue. And what that means is that if this computer crashes and that message is out in the queue, that this queue will continue to try to redeliver that message again and again and again. So let's say that we did have some type of outage and this computer goes down. It would be a delay in processing those files, but they should be reprocessed, which is another architectural difference. I remember it wasn't that long ago where we had an outage and we basically lost everybody's files that they had uploaded. I'm sure Erica remembers that one. And so right now, just keeping things simple and as cheap as possible, it's just one computer still doing it all, but it's a trivial architecture change now to kind of add another box that messages get pulled from here. And so that's a neat architectural change, but it's also a really cool change for observability. And so in fact, we can see that 9 seconds ago, we had an error. Somebody uploaded a file maybe because it looked like the file I uploaded was successful. But very easy for us to go in and start to diagnose and see what's going on with whatever file was uploaded that had an error. We can see we had an invalid argument, pages exceeded the limit. So yeah, this is one of the known bugs where we can only process a PDF right now that's up to 15 pages. And that's why this particular one failed. And it's easy for me to see that because the error is right here logged and isolated in the way it's logged. But let's say that I didn't know, I didn't just stumble upon the message here. We can go through and say, focus on the control plane, and we can focus just on these processable assets. And now it's very easy to go through and see all of the processable assets. And in fact, this is probably, my guess is that same asset being tried again and again and again and again, because we're trying to recover. And the queue doesn't necessarily know if it was an error that the file can never be processed again, or if it was a temporary error that we can recover from. And then just one last thing, since we haven't looked at this stuff real quick, is just some of the stats that we have here. And Alex will have plenty more stats in the dashboards that he builds, but we're focused on the development environment, and we can see things like the request rate. So, over here, we had a lot of people using the development server in comparison to, last night, nobody's using the development server. And then right now, you can see it's kind of picking back up probably for this demo. And another reason why these metrics are really important is if we look at the 7-day trend here, this is something I spotted yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, that caused me concern, which was this line coming up here. And what that line was go routines, which are not being closed out or completed. And the reason that that is important is because that threatens the stability of the entire system. You could imagine like you're making a telephone call and you're never hanging up that telephone call. And eventually all of the phone lines that you have access to are going to be open and you can't make any more calls. And so this helped me actually spot a bug. You can see the trend here and here and here. We're just going up and it shouldn't look like that. I'm not sure that I squashed it. Yesterday, I was able to get a PR out that I think closed it, but maybe there's another go routine that I've left open. And so, it's just to highlight the importance of data and looking at it quickly because we would not want that to have happened on Friday when we launched and a bunch of people come and all of a sudden the telephone lines are full. Okay. I don't have anything to show on the assets being summarized other than to say that there is a paragraph of summary that's being created for every asset and keywords are being created for every asset. I suppose I could do a query in the database. But the way that these are going to show their value is again in the tree control. We'll be able to at some point imagine that you'll want to download the file that you can see in that tree control so you can remember what file it is that you're working with. And you'll also be able to access this data that we've summarized. The data we've summarized by only doing it once. For example, in the exact demonstration that Andy did earlier, where he mentioned the file and said, please summarize this for me. There's no reason for us to go over the LLM and repeat that summarization because we've already done it once and we paid for that once. And by summarizing, it will help our the embeddings because will be a very strong signal for our embeddings. And so we'll be able to, I think, efficiently find what appropriate files to grab to put into your query when you're chatting across all of your knowledge. And the keywords, this will be more immediate value. The keywords are going to be showing their value when you search in the top left of the tree control. And so as you start to type white paper, the Bitcoin white paper might pop up if you've uploaded that because white paper was the keyword that we've extracted out of the Bitcoin paper. Another way that these keywords, I believe, will be of value, and Andy has shown this before, although we've deactivated the feature at the moment, is in the autocomplete capabilities of the prompt, where it can kind of type ahead and predict what you might type. By extracting these keywords out of all of your knowledge, we'll be able to drive that particular feature. And so it will be a little while before I think that really cool feature is online because we're going to have to build a database of these keywords. But as that database gets built, we'll be able to restore that really cool feature of the type ahead that Andy built some weeks ago. Anyways, you may see at some point in the near future that there's a little connecting animation on the prompt bar. And what that
Go to
prompt
staging,
bar
maybe.
is
Sorry.
on staging. Storytell staging. I don't know if it's gotten there yet.
It did, but
connecting. This one has the bug of the anonymous users though. And so what this is doing is it's waiting until we have authenticated you before it's allowing you to chat. And I think on dev I believe we fixed the this bug for anonymous users. If I refresh, we will have created my identity and it should show that I'm connecting. Or if I sign in using my Storytell account, we should see that connecting goes away.
I think it's actually a different issue. I pinged you in the chat about it.
Okay, well, connecting.
Yeah.
So, the demo of showing connecting is perfect. It's absolutely trying to connect, and you can see that. And that ends the demo on the connecting bug, demonstrating the connecting bug. But part of the reason that we have to have this kind of state is there's a little bit of a race condition in that until we've established your identity, we can't create a thread on your behalf which is why we're waiting to authenticate you as an anonymous user or as a known signed in user. And that has to happen before you can submit a prompt.